And we are live, I believe.
We're live. All right. So is anybody here? All right, there's some people here. So if you can hear me and if you can see me, please type something into the chat. I know it's I got my sunglasses on here. It's pretty sunny outside, but I just want to be outside. So I try to take them off as much as possible, but yeah, anyway, you can look at my pretty slides. You don't need to look at me. So yeah, let me know if you can hear and see me. You can type into your chat. There should be a chat over on the right. It's really important to me that you're able to type in there, because if you have any questions or anything, I want to know, like what we should cover or what to answer. Maybe we should just get started. We'll get started in 1 minute. Can you hear and see me? As soon as I have confirmation that somebody can hear and see me, then we'll get started. Just want to make sure it's all working. Okay, no sound. Rooker, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear and see you.
Yeah, I know you can hear and see me, but just want to make sure that.
Can anybody hear me?
There's about a 30-second delay. Okay, Robert or Robert can hear / see me. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, yeah. I just went off and went on a faster internet. They're good. They can hear me. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's get started. I think 6 minutes late is still fashionably late. Again, I apologize for the sunglasses. It's just so shiny out here, and I don't want to be inside. So, yeah. Okay, so I want to thank you for being here. You could be doing a ton of other stuff right now, but you've chosen to come here and focus on your health, and not just like health, but deep health, right? Digestive health. And like, we're the hardcore crowd. And I think you need to be a little bit hardcore, frankly. I think you need to be a little bit hardcore, frankly, to make health work for you nowadays. Rooker, you can go get my headphones from the cabinet where some of the electronics are. They're white, they're in a case. They'll prevent more feedback. You can also start the slides and we'll just get started. Thank you. All right. You got the slides, Rooker? This doesn't work. Okay.
Can you ask?
Okay, I'm sure you can hear me. I can't really see on here, Rooker. Okay, I'm sure you can hear and see me, so I'm just going to keep going. Okay, so let's get started with probiotics and autoimmunity. This is not the first slide, Rooker. I don't know how to navigate the slides.
Steph, please.
Okay, I don't know how to on your computer.
Just go to that page.
I can't see the cursor. Thank you. All right, there we go. Yeah, so I want to thank you for being here. And like I was saying, you need to be a little bit hardcore for your health right now, because there are a lot of assaults on our digestive system, and there's not a lot of good organized information out there. So you've probably done a great deal of your own research, and that's probably why you're here. And again, you could be doing anything else with your time, especially in the middle of the day. You could be alphabetizing your toothbrushes if you wanted to. How do I forward the slides?
Push the button down, arrow down.
Okay, awesome. So today we are going to cover some common autoimmune conditions and the digestive bacteria associated with them. We're going to talk about some organisms that can cause fatigue. This is like just regular digestive organisms, okay, that are in many of our bodies, probably all of our bodies right now. It just depends on the balance, right? We're going to talk about some bacteria that can cause pain in different areas of the body. We're going to talk about bacteria that can cause skin conditions, and more specific, we'll get a little bit specific into that. We're going to talk about some of the best probiotics for you. So how to choose them, what to look for, even in just a general probiotic that you're looking for in a store. We're going to talk about what's missing from many probiotics. We're going to talk about how to grow your own probiotics at home and how to leverage your probiotics and save money. All right, so if you get a chance, or if you haven't had a chance yet to go print out the slides, just so you can take some notes, they're at stephjackson.com/handout8. So they're really like handouts for the event. They're not exactly the same as what you're going to see on your screen, and a lot of space for you to take notes and just make it more personal. If you have any questions, you can save them until the end. And then we'll have some question time. Perfect. You're able to make it work? Thank you. You can advance the slide. I can handle that. Yeah, so this is not medical advice. I need to make sure that I say that to you right up front at the beginning. If you want medical advice, you're probably going to have to go to the doctor. If you want some advice about how to regenerate the healthy microflora in your gut, then you're in the right place. If you want to talk about helping your body to heal itself, then you're totally in the right place. If you want a magic bullet solution, or if you don't really want to take charge of your health, definitely go to the doctor. So this is not medical advice. Perfect. I hope you like my pictures. So let's just talk for a minute. What is autoimmunity? So we're on the same page. People will say that it's an overactive immune system, when really I encourage you, or I challenge you to think about it as an imbalance. So it's not necessarily that your immune system's doing too much, or that it's overly activated, because quite often there are different parts of the immune system that are actually underactivated. And a lot of the yeasts and bacteria in our gut can sort of inform our immune system of what to do. And sometimes that works for and against us, and perhaps in their favor. And so then we end up with an imbalance, and we end up with symptoms but not necessarily of just the immune system going crazy too much, right? So that's a common misunderstanding. People will also say that it's our immune system mistakenly attacking our own tissues. And I just want to say our immune system does not make mistakes. I once did a calculation based on if I lived 130 years and if I saw a new particle every second of my life, and I was able to somehow memorize that for 130 years, I would be still not remembering as many particles as my immune system is capable of. Okay, so our immune systems can remember billions and billions and billions of little particles, and they don't make mistakes like that. The issue is the particles. Right? And so sometimes just when something goes on for so very long, the body doesn't make a mistake, but the body will change how it fights these particles, and we end up with a lot more antibodies, and we might end up finding these particles in other parts of our body tissue, like our brain and our thyroid and things like that. So, yeah, this is the right slide. What's happening in autoimmunity? Our immune systems damage our own tissues, again, not by accident, but because there are things in there that are the same structurally as the particles that are offending us in other parts of our body. This happens for a reason, right? And there's usually a trigger. There's usually a trigger, something that comes into the body that our immune systems are like, whoa, you don't belong here, or you're not useful, or you're not something that I can break down and do anything with. So there will often be, or there will, I would argue, always be a condition or a state of being or a state of tissues that allows the trigger to trigger us. For example, leaky gut, allowing bacterial byproducts to come through into our bloodstream, like something called lipopolysaccharides, for instance. And then that will trigger our immune system to go, hey, you big particles are not supposed to be in here. And then, fair enough, to launch a bit of a defense against them. So our bodies are intelligent, and our bodies are doing everything they can to keep us safe. Okay, so that is the premise of this whole discussion. Our bodies are not fighting against us, and I challenge you to not fight against your body either. Yeah. Yeah. So just for example of what autoimmunity might look like, a few years ago, so after my son was born, I guess this is about 9 years ago now, not from the period of 9 years to about 8 years ago, I was super exhausted. I was in pain. I was definitely not the mother that I wanted to be, you know, and this is the kind of thing that keeps you up at night going like, man, I'm failing at life. I know that sounds a little dark, but nobody pictures themselves just lying on the couch and not being able to live their life properly. I was unproductive. I was unable to work very fully. I barely felt like I was awake. Some of you may have had this experience. And then I woke up one morning with these black and swollen joints. Man, and it hurt. Like it hurt. Like people would touch them and it would hurt so bad. And someone said to me, oh, Steph, that looks like rheumatoid arthritis. I'm like, a rheumatoid what now? That's for sick people. But so then started months, just months, not years, because I have a woman of very little patience, of going to doctors and specialists and trying to see, you know, what they were going to diagnose me with. I have been fortunate to have had many successes with taking my health into my own hands. So there wasn't really a moment where I felt scared that there couldn't be anything done about it. But at the same time, I was at the end of my rope and I just wanted some help. Just wanted someone to tell me what was going on and kind of give me a solution. And I remember going, so I'd been to the gastroenterologist and I had a rheumatologist, a fantastic rheumatologist that I dealt with at the time still. I ended up at the allergist because I wanted to just check, right? And they were going to do the skin prick test, which I even think isn't a very good test. But anyway, I was there and I saw this sign up on the wall and it was like this crooked piece of computer printer paper that was like stuck with like Scotch tape, and it said, "This clinic is not responsible for any change in symptoms during or after your visit." And I was like, I'm leaving. So you can go to the next slide, Rooker. So yeah, basically that was it. I realized that nobody else was going to actually help me. Nobody was going to take charge of my health. I just kept going, specialist and explaining over and over again what's going on with my body and getting these really surface answers from them. They're not ordering the right tests. They weren't digging deep. And from my research for our yogurt company, I knew a lot about the bacteria, and nobody was talking to me about the bacteria. Nobody was talking to me about rebuilding my gut. And I thought that I would just do that for myself. And so I did. And so I'm here. Right. So let's talk about digestion specifically and autoimmunity, just to sort of hit this home a little bit. Let's go to the next slide. So why the gut? It's the most likely place where things are going to get into our body. It's where we literally take like the outside world and we put it in our mouth and we swallow it, and it like goes in us. Okay. So we're taking things from outside. This sounds really dumb, but like we're taking things from outside and we're putting them in our body. Okay, so that is the place where we mostly do that. We're not taking stuff and like rubbing it on our skin all day long, although that's a topic for another discussion, right? So that's why we're all looking at the gut. That's why we're all obsessed with getting gut tests and with even getting food allergy tests, no matter how you believe in that, because that's where stuff comes in. And so let's also face it, we eat some things that are not food designed for human consumption. There are a lot of things that we eat that we really don't really have anything to do with nutritionally. Not so much us on the call here, but us in the developed world for sure. And between 90 and 70, somewhere in that range, % of our immune system resides around the gut. So in the lymphatic tissue, just around our intestinal tract. And this is because this is where the stuff is coming in. And so our body needs to be there, to memorize new particles, and to just have everything ready just so that when we see something, we can then start the chain of defense that is quite often already in place, but just waiting. And our guts are just a single layer of cells. And it kind of has to be for things to go through really well, for us to be able to absorb our nutrients, but that also makes us vulnerable there. It's a sensitive area of the body, and sensitive does not have to mean it's flawed. Sensitive can be a good thing. Okay. Yeah. So any questions about this, you can type them into the chat and I'll see if I can weave them in. And if not, we'll get to them at the end of the talk. Yeah. Okay. So the cost of autoimmunity. Quite often there's no diagnosis until there is significant tissue damage. Okay. So like celiac, for instance, they measure how damaged your gut is, how damaged your little microvilli, those absorbative, great surface area parts of our digestive wall. They measure how damaged those are, and when it gets to a certain point, it's called celiac. Okay. There has to be significant damage for it to be called something. So there's no word for your body attacking your cardiac tissue. There's no word for like your body attacking your brain. There's no word for damage being done to the gut until it gets to a certain point. Am I making sense? So this is the risk. This is the cost, is that things can get kind of bad and we won't know anything about it. Things can be silent. There can be silent autoimmunity right up until you have a heart attack or Alzheimer's disease or type 2 diabetes. But arguably, I think if we were listening to our bodies, we would recognize some of the signs and symptoms of type 2 diabetes, but we're not educated this way. We're not educated this way. We don't go get tests to see if we have cardiac antibodies, but quite often people do who I send to those tests. Am I making sense? Another cost of autoimmunity is inflammation. And once you've got kind of the inflammatory cascade happening somewhere in the body, it's a lot easier for it to happen in other places of the body. And in fact, the body will do this to protect us. This is supposed to be a protective mechanism. But as we know, inflammation has been vilified because it can lead to many things like poor metabolism of glucose, for instance, brain issues, sleep issues, pain, things like this, right? Also, if you have one autoimmune condition, diagnosed or not, the chances of having another significantly increase. And really, like the elephant here is people aren't dealing with the root cause, right? So the cost is that it keeps going and we keep getting hurt while we're not doing anything to actually resolve the issue. Yeah. Thanks, Trina. I can see some good comments in there. Just let me know if you have any other questions or if this is making sense. So some things we might notice when we're having autoimmunity in our bodies. Fatigue. Beyond the just kind of like, ooh, I'm tired, but sort of like absolutely no get up and go kind of tired. Food intolerances. Inflammation. Possible autoimmune diagnosis, right? So if maybe someone's told you that you have an autoimmune condition, or if one runs in the family, seasonal allergies, possible chemical sensitivities, unexplained pain. So like if you didn't hit your finger with a hammer, but it hurts, and you weren't doing it, like you weren't playing guitar, like you weren't doing anything to fatigue it, but it hurts, it doesn't make sense. So we tend to just accept some things as normal, because I think our brains have to do that to just deal with the complexity of life. But when we stop and think about it, it's like, oh yeah, my hip's been sore for a year. That's weird. Or, I've been really extra tired the past few months, and I don't think it's just because it's winter or whatever, right? These are our bodies telling us something. Exhaustion and unexplained symptoms. Anything that's happening in your body that you perceive that doesn't have to do with any change that's been made. Make sense? So these are the things we may notice, and some of them are very subtle. So if we're not paying attention, we can miss them. So let me know if you can hear me still, or if you have any questions about that. I'm going to move to a slightly less windy location, just in case that's really affecting. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, so what's really happening? Sorry, I'm paranoid about the wind, but I also wanted to just sit cross-legged. So what's really happening? Things are getting into the body that should not be getting into the body, right? I used to have this thing that I would say that all illness comes from either too much of something in our bodies that we can't use, right? Something that our bodies need to protect us from, whether or not that means we're not getting rid of it fast enough, or we're absorbing too much of it, something in there that we don't need, or not enough of something that we need. And leaky gut can cause these problems. And I know it sounds like an oversimplification, but really, when you break everything down to root cause level, this is sort of what it is. It's not always from leaky gut. We could have other sources of toxins that our bodies don't need. But like I said, our gut is where we bring the outside world in. So here are some examples of how leaky gut can affect our bodies, right? So inflammation in the gut like we kind of just talked about, can lead to inflammation in other parts of the body just because we have the inflammatory cascade going on, if nothing else. But it also affects active transport, which is when our bodies need to escort nutrients gently, like the queen, across our gut lining. And it affects our absorption, just our easy absorption of other things like magnesium when we take enough of it. The bacteria and yeasts in our gut affect enzyme production. And they can turn on and off our immunity. They make enzymes themselves. And they can communicate with our immune systems. They can communicate with our digestive systems and make us produce more or less of these hormones or more or less white blood cells. It's quite fascinating. Sometimes not very helpful for us. So yeah, nutrients don't necessarily make it through because some of them need to get the special treatment. But toxins don't need the special treatment. They can oftentimes just kind of bash their way through. Yeah. So let's go to the next one. Yeah, so here are some bacteria. This part was really hard for me to kind of narrow it down to some specific gut bugs, but let's talk about these ones. So here are some bacteria that can lead to leaky gut when they are out of order or when they're in too high of numbers. So the imbalances would be like too many candida or other fungi. Candida is not a yeast. Candida is a yeast that behaves exactly like a fungus. Why it's not called a fungus, I don't know. So what they can do as a fungus is they can kind of grab on to our intestinal wall. They have these kind of long arms, finger-like projections called hyphae. And what they do is they kind of glom onto our skin, right? And as we were saying, that's like a cell thick there, which ain't much. So they can actually directly cause leaky gut this way. But also their byproducts can cause leaky gut as well. E. coli, the good E. coli, when they're in too high of numbers, they can acidify our small intestine. Our small intestine's meant to be like pretty alkaline space in there. And so E. coli can change that, which can damage our gut. It can damage our lining that protects our gut. It can invite whole hordes of other bacteria to come live in there. Thanks. You're welcome. And yeah, so this changing the environment changes the health of our skin in there, and we can get leaky gut. So same with Klebsiella. Klebsiella likes to move in when E. coli's there, but they can also be separate, and they can do the similar thing. Those are two of the more common bacteria that you'll see in SIBO, if you've heard of SIBO, which I'm sure that you probably have. Yeah. Okay. So let's go to that. Yeah. So helpful organisms. So these are some bacteria, again, super hard to narrow it down, that have been shown to help, to quote unquote, heal leaky gut. So to help the digestive system to heal itself, right? To reduce what's called intestinal permeability, right? To be super politically correct. So bifidobacterium, any of them, really, there are great studies on Bifidum infantis, Bifidum adolescentis, Bifidobacterium bifidum, anything that starts with bifidobacterium, you're doing really well for helping the gut to heal itself. So there are some bacteria called bacillus, and they're the spore-forming bacteria. You'll find them in like megaspore and in natto. Lactobacillus plantarum. Really good to, if you're buying a probiotic, you can look and see if it has plantarum in it and see if it has a number afterward, because those patented strains, at least know they're the ones that the studies have been on. Yeah. So Lactobacillus reuteri and Lactobacillus rhamnosus, they have all been shown to help to reduce intestinal permeability. Yeah. So I see some awesome questions. So I'm gonna do a question pause in a moment. So what about digestive bacteria? So I want to talk specifically about some bacteria in the gut that have been related to some specific autoimmune conditions. But first, I'm going to just clear up anything that I think is going to be getting in the way of understanding this next part of the talk. So Ying said, regarding food sensitivity testing, would you like to hear, I would like to hear your thoughts on how to interpret if someone is tested positive for compounds such as solanine, but not to any foods in the nightshade. Okay, I'm going to answer that one at the end. So thank you, Ying. MS said, you said anything that's been happening symptom-wise that is not attributed to any changes. I was just meaning it's kind of a sign that something's going on in the body. It can be a sign that there's an autoimmune condition that's kind of silent in there, which would be like you haven't hit your hand with a hammer, but your hand hurts. Or you wake up one day and you notice that your back's been sore for several months, but you've just been like putting it, or you notice that you're forgetting things more easily than usual, or that you're gaining weight and it has nothing to do with the food that you're eating, that kind of thing. So Colleen is asking, would an alkaline diet be good to resolve E. coli and Klebsiella growth? That is like step one. Yes, you probably need to do more, but if we don't have that, then we don't have a lot. So that's very good, Colleen. So Bob, if you have leaky gut, should you avoid megaspore and the Bacillus family, and why, if so? So I don't know if you remember earlier in the presentation, I was talking about lipopolysaccharides. These are, it's almost like a part of the outer skin of this bacteria, if you will. They're these big particles, and they are a common trigger for brain autoimmunity, for kidney disease, and for many other things in the body. They're not supposed to go into the body. They're supposed to stay in the gut. So that's why I like to actually add them later. I've kind of got this step-by-step system where I start with the safest bacteria that are going to cause the least autoimmune reactivity. And then later on, we add the more complicated bacteria, like those megaspore bacteria, when it's safer to do so, right? Because I don't want to set off anybody's symptoms. And I know this kind of goes against a lot of the hypey marketing that's going on out there, which is, their product, those products, I should say, with the Bacillus bacteria, have been shown to help heal intestinal permeability, but I don't want to be setting off autoimmunity in the other parts of the body at the same time and just call it collateral damage. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question, Bob. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our content. If there's anything else that's preventing you from like understanding what's going on, please do ask the questions. Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about with the colonizing bacteria. I'm talking about the megaspore, and I'm saying to do it later. So to start with those safer bacteria, like what we were talking about, like the bifidobacterium. Okay, so I want to talk about specific digestive bacteria and how they can affect autoimmune conditions in the body. Okay. So yeah, we can go to the H. pylori. Let's talk about them for a second. So H. pylori is like a spirochete bacteria. They're like one of those spirally bacteria that that live in our stomachs. Okay, and they're quite common. They love actually a more alkaline environment. They're not that interested in a super acidic environment. They like to alkalinize the environment in the stomach. So they produce bicarbonate, like baking soda, right, type thing. And they reduce stomach acid so that they're more comfy in there. So they have been directly linked in many studies to Alzheimer's, to type 2 diabetes. So the amount of people with type 2 diabetes that have H. pylori is quite astounding as compared to the non-diabetic population. Thyroid conditions, there have been studies, both inconclusive and somewhat more conclusive, linking H. pylori to thyroid conditions, and to stomach and duodenal cancers. I know it's not strictly an autoimmune disease. From my perspective, it's more of a coping mechanism of some cells in the body. Nonetheless, 95% of the time with stomach and duodenal cancer, there's H. pylori present. That's a very staggering number. Yeah, and so H. pylori, again, they alkalinize our stomach environment. So they also prevent us from absorbing the nutrients like zinc and magnesium that we need for healthy immunity. So it's kind of a double whammy there with them. And because they're the burrowing bacteria, they can go ahead and hide. So if we're eating something or taking some herbs or doing something that they don't like, they can just, okay, see ya, and then they can go hide. Our stomach, like it's like spherical, right? They can go up here. It's not spherical, but like it's a big cavernous round, not round, but open space in there. They can hide, and then they can come back later, right? That's one of their special gifts. And that's why when you're doing something herbally, I can see some herb questions up there. You want to make sure that you're doing something that's really coating. And we can talk about that a little bit more. I have some very specific info on that, but it's a whole program that I have on that. And it's a separate thing. There's so much to go over. You want to be careful if you have H. pylori. I will say this, don't take stomach acid. So I just told you that you lower your stomach acid, but then if you go take a bunch of stomach acid, you can make them go hide more. And when they bury into your tissues, that's when you end up getting things like thyroid symptoms, or it ends up exacerbating autoimmune things. So this is why we need like a kind of a step-by-step also plan for H. pylori. You can't just kind of carpet bomb these guys because they have defense mechanisms, and that can often hurt us. Yeah. Okay. So we can talk a bit more about H. pylori at the end, but so I just wanted to bring it home that it's a very normal digestive bacteria. It's estimated that up to 40% of the population has this, but not to the level where it's going to cause problems. So they can take advantage of an imbalance, and then they can make it further in their favor, if that makes sense. And like none of that is helpful for us. So it's important to do what we can to minimize them. So as a start, I thought on this webinar, we could talk about some bacteria that you can include like in your probiotic regimen, or that you can maybe start making some foods with that have been shown to help reduce H. pylori. So Lactobacillus rhamnosus and Lactobacillus salivarius. Like take a screenshot or write it down. Again, I like to do a whole plan, but as a part of a plan that is very low risk, these two bacteria can be very helpful. So they produce kind of antibiotics against the H. pylori, if you will. And they also change the environment in the small intestine that will help with a bit of a feedback loop. It'll help us to have the right stomach environment, which is discouraging for H. pylori, but not as dangerous as us just throwing in a bunch of hydrochloric acid. Cool. Okay. This is fantastic. Thank you for being so attentive to this H. pylori thing. I think it's a big deal. So here are some signs and symptoms of H. pylori. Heartburn, fullness after eating, nutrient insufficiencies, bloating, nausea, fatigue. So it can be a range of everything from like my mom going like, I can't eat food late at night because then I get heartburn. And I'm like, you should go for a test. And we just kind of loop around. Anyway, she ended up going for a test and she has H. pylori. She ended up doing something for it and she feels a lot better, which is fantastic because I want her around for a long time. It can be arranged from that, right? Where it's not a lot of symptoms, but you kind of feel uncomfortable sometimes. It can also be completely silent. Digestively, we don't have a lot of nerve endings in there, right? We're not meant to feel everything that's going on. It can range from that all the way to a friend of mine on Pender here on Thursday was actually water taxied out to a local hospital because he had been vomiting for several days and he was in so much pain. And they're calling it gastric reflux disease, with the word disease after it. And so they've given him, of course, some acid blocking medication, which ironically has been linked to Alzheimer's. I shouldn't be laughing, but so that was a very extreme situation. And right now he's still having trouble eating. He's trying to like eat mushy bananas because he's in so much pain. So there's a whole range there of the kind of things that can be caused by H. pylori. Yeah, so let's go to the next one. So there are some other unhandy bacteria that can cause other things. Some yeasts and fungi. So again, the yeasts that bother us in our digestive system are not really yeasts. Yeasts are a little bit more benign, but they're more like fungi. So they have those finger-like projections. They can glom onto our wall. They can produce byproducts, or toxins that can affect our brain and our bodies. So Candida is just one of them. So when you read Candida or when you Google things and they say Candida, from now on, I want you to not hear Candida. I want you to hear fungus-like organisms, because there are so many of them. And what can happen is they don't show up on tests, because sometimes we're just testing for Candida, right? But there are other yeasts and fungi that can affect us. So you might end up with, low Candida or no Candida, but there might be something else going on. One example is the one on the bottom here, the Rhodotorula. So this is another yeast that can act like a fungus in the body. The one in the middle here, I just wanted to bring this one to your attention, the Saccharomyces cerevisiae. A really high prevalence of people with celiac disease are sensitive to Saccharomyces cerevisiae. And this is the yeast that we'll use to make bread and beer, like cerveza, like this kind of thing, right? So this is a very common yeast. And so what can often happen, and maybe part of why only 8% of celiacs apparently ever really heal, is things like this. Saccharomyces cerevisiae, an ingredient in foods, comes into our bodies and our bodies react to it. I have seen, and therefore I have a theory, that Saccharomyces boulardii can also set off people's autoimmune symptoms. It's a very popular probiotic, is great for many things, can help prevent a candida infection after surgery. However, if you're reacting to Saccharomyces cerevisiae, it might not be super wise to take Saccharomyces boulardii. So I hope that makes sense. I'm kind of dropping these bombs on you here. But yeah, I want you to have the benefit of this information. I'm not saying never to take Saccharomyces boulardii, but I am saying to take it with caution and to maybe precede it with some of those more protective bacteria, like the bifidobacteria, which, are safe for infants. Whereas the Saccharomyces cerevisiae, the Saccharomyces boulardii, they're more complex. Let's go to next. So here are some helpful organisms to reduce yeasts and fungi in the body. Bifidobacterium, my friend, Saccharomyces boulardii, right? That whole talk about it. And yet it can help to reduce other yeasts. So it just depends on you, right? Depends on your signs and symptoms and what's right for you. Bacillus subtilis, Bacillus licheniformis, Bacillus clausii. And again, these are the ones that you'll find in those spore-based probiotics. This is why I love to go after yeasts later, and not just go up front on like hardcore candida cleanses, because then we waste our hardcore and we can end up with symptoms. So the safest one in here out of this list is the bifidobacterium. All right, tell me if I'm making sense. Write something in the comments. I'm in a super no-nonsense mood today, so I want to make sure that I'm giving you enough backstory and stuff and that it's making sense to you. Cool. Let's see. So the crux of this is leaky gut. The crux of this is leaky gut. Let's go on to the next slide. In leaky gut, it's in the media, it's on Dr. Axe. Like you can Google it and get lots of cool information about, which kind of broth to drink. Right. And so again, yes, so candida can cause leaky gut. That's a good point, Bob. Exactly. So you end up in a bit of a, but the crux of this is leaky gut. These bacteria byproducts are not meant to go through to the body, right? These are some of the things that the body needs for the gut to heal itself, right? Magnesium, vitamin A, amino acids, zinc, essential fatty acids, short chain fatty acids, which are produced by bacteria that are friends with bifidum. But hey, we need to be able to absorb this stuff. So, if it weren't for them like kind of causing leaky gut, like the candida that we're talking about glomming onto our, thank you so much. They're also interfering with our absorption of these nutrients by changing the environment in there, by directly depleting our body of them, like in the case of candida, depleting our bodies of magnesium, causing inflammation, which makes our need for essential fatty acids and short chain fatty acids higher, activating our immune system where we need more zinc, but then we're having trouble absorbing it, especially with critters like H. pylori. Making sense? Right? So we're totally ignoring this. We're ignoring this. We're like just getting some supplements. We're getting some herbs. Maybe not us on this call, but many of us. We're getting told to like drink more green juice, which I'm a total fan of. But if we can't absorb stuff, we can't absorb stuff. And if we're not dealing with the root cause, which can be an imbalance of bacteria, then we're not going to get the results that we could get. We can feel better, but we're probably not going to have those moments, like I've been saved moments. But so, let's just, I want to do a little poll here. How many of you have ever had a digestive symptom? It's kind of a rhetorical question, but I just want to have a like, yes here. Yes, I've had that. This is such an easy question. Like when I'm doing a talk or something, I'll say, how many people have had a digestive symptom? And like everybody raises their hands because of course we all have, right? And this is all information. Yeah. All information, right? Yeah. And I think that, our digestive systems, like there's a lot more coming into our bodies, different types of chemicals, different antibiotics. And I mean, all of us have probably taken antibiotics at some time in our lives. And there's kind of another misunderstanding that we think we just take an antibiotic and basically what happens is it kills everything equally. And then we start from scratch. And that's just not what happens. So some of these organisms like H. pylori can hide. We talked about E. coli. They've got like a double cell wall. So while antibiotics might, kill its neighbor, E. coli is sitting there going, hey, I'm tough. I'm fine. Right. And so then whatever's kind of left at the end of our course of antibiotics, they can double every half hour. Like, so they can get out of balance pretty quickly, which is why I actually recommend if you're going to be taking antibiotics, take your probiotics at the same time, not like at the exact same time, but like, maybe take your antibiotics in the morning or take it with food and then take your probiotics before bed. Like, I don't know, just, take them concurrently so that you're still helping with the balance, while it's getting unbalanced. Does this make sense? You don't want to get to the point where you've spent 2 weeks creating an imbalance and then try to fix it at that point. Yeah. The cell turnover in the gut is like 3 to 5 days, right? And unfortunately, these cells just make kind of a replica of themselves in their current state of health, right? But if a cell is given the opportunity to become healthier than when it was born, which is totally possible, it will replicate new cells at this new healthier level. And so 3 to 5 days is a really great opportunity to keep getting better and better and better and better and better. And when our gut is getting better and better and better and better and better, our nutrients are going to get better. Our fingernails are going to get better. Our hair is going to get better. We're going to lose weight. Like all of these things can happen, but we need to start with the gut. So first, I just have to say this stuff. Remove food triggers. If you're sensitive to gluten, if you know that, or if somebody else in your family is, I would actually say everybody, but I don't want you to think I'm a freak. Gluten. Try it. Remove it for a month. See what happens completely. Remove unfoods. Okay? I'm talking about white powdered things and processed things. Remove stress. Just kidding. Reduce stress as much as you can, right? Because this just helps our body to replicate healthier cells, really. Maybe other things that are triggers for your gut, like lectins. I can show you how to ferment them to reduce them. But if they're causing inflammation in your gut, anything that's causing inflammation in the gut is going to prevent it from healing itself. Does that make sense? So all these other cool things that we're talking about are fantastic, but we also need to stop hurting ourselves. I just had to say it. Okay, so thank you. Thank you. I see some yeses. Okay. Yeah, so lectins, they are the thing in like nightshades and potatoes and some beans and legumes that people can be sensitive to. Yeah, and so if you know that you're sensitive to those things, then avoid them. Or if you have trouble digesting like beans and legumes, then either ferment them first or switch to lentils and even ferment that so you get even less, or yeah, eat something else. Okay, so what to do? So we have to increase our absorption. We need to give the body what it needs and not what it doesn't need. And we need to rebuild the digestive bacteria to change the environment in there. Yeah, sprouted helps. I like to sprout and then ferment it, Eugenia. Okay. Yeah, let's go on to the next. So here's some food ideas that can help us to get some of these bacteria into our bodies. So yogurt, to start with, you can make with whichever bacteria are going to be right to help you with whatever imbalance is going on in your body, which is why I love the yogurt. I just love it. Not because I love yogurt, but because I love personalizing things for you, honestly. Yeah, and so we can kind of just choose, or you can choose the bacteria that you feel will be right for you, and then make a yogurt out of it. Later on, when it's, safer to do so, you can add back in things like sauerkraut, or have them now if it doesn't cause gas and bloating, right? You can add back in things like sauerkraut, or you can try out things like natto. Definitely not dairy-based yogurt. I live in a bubble where nothing I say ever means dairy. I just forget to say that because of my bubble that I live in. But so natto, we talked about having those spore-based bacteria in it, can be super healthy for you. But I like to start with the yogurts. And I don't call it nut yogurt because it could be nuts, or it could be spinach, or it could be yams. It could be, I made a great yogurt out of potatoes and coconut because I was trying to find something that I could grow on my property here that I could make yogurt out of. So yeah, whatever is okay for you is okay. Definitely, I mean, goat milk is more digestible than cow milk. Some people have even asked about camel milk. It's a slightly different process to make it like with the milk than what I talk about, because I'm trying to show people how to make it out of anything, so they can use the yogurt in dips and in smoothies and in dressings. And so it's not just limited to like having yogurt in a bowl with fruit or muesli, because it's the kind of food with such an impact, if you can customize it with your own bacteria, that if you can include it every day in a meal and keep it exciting for yourself, like this is like long-term health maintenance that we're talking about. It's not sexy. It's just, I think, what we need to do to optimize our health right now. So yeah, you can make hemp yogurt, with the distinction that I don't mean you can make yogurt from hemp milk. I mean, you can make yogurt from hemp. So we can talk about that a little bit later. Yeah, so other ferments as well. So I love to make the yogurt. I love to make fermented vegetables like broccoli sprouts or sauerkraut or kimchi, all of these things, pickles. But yeah, I like to start with the yogurt so that we can customize those bacteria. And then when we're at a certain level of digestive health, then add in the more complex organisms. Yeah, so we can talk a little bit more about that at the end. So is there there's a slide of food, another slide of food here. Yeah. Okay. So then of course you can take your yogurt and make it into like a cheesecake. It's a salad that I made where I took the water out of my yogurt, I strained it, and then I made like a feta and I crumbled that on there. Green juice, you can add like, I really, as much as I was kind of wary of Saccharomyces boulardii, I really like the kefir, the water kefir, the coconut kefir. You know, you can make some pretty cool cocktails out of that. Cool. Okay. So yeah, so hopefully this is inspiring you, to make more of your meals probiotic. So not to just eat a tablespoon so you can increase your good gut bacteria, but to eat enough of a quantity of it that you're going to make an environmental shift in there. We want an environmental shift. We don't want to just get some nice bacteria. Okay. So we want to think holistically. And by holistically, I mean, not just like, ooh, I have H. pylori, I'm going to take salivarius for that. We're really going to think what's going on at a deep level. What are the conditions that allowed them to overgrow? What can I do to change those conditions in my body? You know, what am I eating? What are the stresses that I'm exposed to? So like the whole thing, but also to think holistically about the foods that we're eating. So because foods can be a Band-Aid too. Like, it's not holistic just to be eating a salad if we think that the salad is going to cure us. It's holistic to start to think differently. Is this making sense? I love salad, by the way. Yeah, cool. So we got think holistically, and then we've got change the inhabitants and the environment. Because yeah, you know what? If we've got H. pylori or if we've got a yeast overgrowth, yeah, we're going to want to do something about that. And we might have to do something directly about that may kill them. But that's not all we need to do. Because if we do that and the environment's still the same, then they're just going to move back in. Right? Or maybe they were holding space. Maybe they were doing something to help protect us from ourselves, which we did not even know about. Right? And then we take them away and unexpected things can happen. Right? So we need to change the environment at the same time. Okay, so let's go to the next one. I think I made my point. We need to take it step by step. So again, not sexy. This is not just like take some rhamnosus and you'll get better. It is like we have all lived for, 30, 40 years. We've had a number of different things happen in our digestive systems. We're all coming from different places. There's a safe way to add things in. And again, I really like to start with those bifidobacteria because there is the least amount of symptoms that they can cause. There is the most amount that they can help. They grandmother like this whole colony of great bacteria that we can't even get in probiotics that we need to break down all sorts of harmful things in food, oxalates, phytates, estrogens. Right? So there's a reason why we need to start with something safe like that and then work our way up to the more fancy bacteria. Make sense? And we want to minimize the absorption of the byproducts of the unhealthy bacteria. So when we kill things like Candida, it can be very hard on our bodies because our liver has to process a lot of byproducts. And depending on, the SNPs that we're born with, or depending on who we are, we can process those at a different rate. And depending on the nutrients that we're sufficient in, right? So I think it's safest to prevent that stuff from coming through first, and then go ahead and kill the Candida if you really want to, right? I am going to talk about this kombucha question. Ling says, if we're sensitive to kombucha, does that mean we should not eat mushrooms? Okay, I just want to say something about kombucha. Kombucha has candida in it. Not kombucha has yeasts in it, so we should avoid it. Kombucha has candida in it. Okay, the same kind that we're talking about. And that's required to make the SCOBY, you know? So I love to take like a 1 ounce shot of kombucha every once in a while that has some herbs infused but the way that we're drinking kombucha, especially for those of us that are sensitive to yeast or the Saccharomyces, and may have had candida overgrowth in the past, we can get also a histamine reaction from kombucha. There's a lot that can happen there. I don't actually recommend kombucha, like ever, in any of my programs, except for when I'm doing herbal stuff and I want to use it to draw properties out of the plants. So it doesn't necessarily mean not to eat mushrooms, because mushrooms can be very antifungal because they need to resist the fungi that like to grow on them in the forest. So if you can get a super clean mushroom, like medicinal mushrooms, I would still continue to take reishi and lion's mane and those kind of things, but maybe taking a break from the button mushrooms or the shiitake that you buy in the store, just because they can have a lot of molds on them. But the point of this is to get back to the place where your body can eat those kind of foods and be okay. That's the point of this. Yeah, making sense? I see a natto question. I like the quinoa natto best. I'm not a huge natto fan, but I like the quinoa natto best. I think it's easiest to incorporate. It was the easiest to make. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's continue, and I'll answer any other questions after. Okay, so let's talk about what kind of plan I'm talking about. Let's talk about what plan I'm talking about. Okay, so step 1, you may have guessed, is bifidobacteria, building a healthy foundation. So bifidobacteria, they can really help us to have a great environment that supports other bacteria that we can't buy in the store. So these are bacteria that we're going to find on our foods, especially if we're able to eat, things from the farmer's market and things like that. These are bacteria that we would have been exposed to in infancy after we were exposed to the bifidobacteria. So part of this is modeling after, as an infant, how we were exposed to different things, right? So first we would get the bifidobacteria. They would set up a healthy environment to support the other bacteria that can then move in. The bifidobacteria can also help to stabilize our immune system. They can make it less habitable to parasites and yeasts in there. Yeah, it's like if we build it, they will come. So starting with that. And it's also the safest thing. It's the safest thing. And I would rather do slow and steady than do something quickly that doesn't work, or that does work, and then we're on to the next thing, and then we regress. Yeah, so that's why the foundation with the bifido. They're the first thing that we're exposed to in our early childhood, and it makes sense because of how they support the colony of the other bacteria in there. Okay, so step 2 would be to rebalance the small intestine. So the small intestine is the area where we can get small intestinal overgrowth, where we absorb all of our nutrients, and where we get a lot of our digestive symptoms from. So if you eat food and you get gas and bloating, it's small intestine stuff more likely. It's where we absorb the vast majority of our nutrients. Like almost all our nutrients are absorbed in there in different parts of our small intestine. It is a fragile, sensitive environment, which is a strength because it enables our gut to be discerning, to escort the nutrients in that need to get the special treatment like the queen, and to sense what's happening, right? It's a wonderful system in there. Our immune system lives right there. And so balancing the small intestine has body-wide benefits Even if we're just talking about balancing the pH of the small intestine, let's just talk about that. That is going to have system-wide, body-wide effects, because we reduce inflammation in the gut. It allows the gut to help to heal itself. It can't heal itself when there's inflammation. It can't heal itself when it's the wrong environment. And reducing inflammation at the source can reduce inflammation just because of the cascade anywhere else in the body. Not even talking about the triggers. But this is the part of the body where most of the triggers come through. This is the part of the body that we're talking about when we're talking about leaky gut. When we rebalance the small intestine, we get to introduce fun bacteria like the rhamnosus and the salivarius that can help to protect us against these things like H. pylori, yeasts, E. coli, all sorts, right? So this is where the diversity starts to come in. And because every bacteria has their own song sheet in the choir, right? They're all focusing on their own sheet. They all do their own thing. They can all help us to digest and absorb different foods. And they can help to reduce things that are harmful in foods like oxalates and phytates, these kind of things. And that all that's happening in the small intestine. And here's the rub. Only a very, very small portion of our digestive bacteria are in there. It should only be about 2%, and the rest should all be in the large intestine. That's where everybody goes crazy. The small intestine is not where everybody goes crazy. It is where everybody is under control. And there are certain bacteria that can help us to make it that way. There's something that I learned when can we go to me sometimes and not just the slides? Can we have me? There's something that I learned when I was doing research for my yogurt. Again, non-dairy yogurt. It's that these lactobacillus bacteria are transient. Okay, so if we take like a probiotic, that's going to help us for about 2 to 3 weeks. And it can help us with more long-standing things like inflammation that will last longer, the benefits. Those kind of benefits will last longer. But the bacteria themselves and their offspring, their ability to replicate, is like kind of a few weeks. And then we need to just continue to have a source of these in our diet, which when I was making yogurt, I felt like it was super schmarmy. But now that I'm teaching how to make your own probiotic foods, I'm really excited about that, because you can continue to have it in your own house, and you can save money, and you can just grow your own, and you can customize it to yourself, so that you're not just buying a probiotic and it's helping you for 3 weeks and then forgetting, or it's really expensive, and then, 6 months later taking another one kind of thing. Unless you're way better at taking supplements than most. Okay, so then step 3 would be to discourage the yeasts and fungi in the body. So we can go back to the slides for a sec. Yeah, and so this is when I like to go after things like the Candida and the Rhodotorula, these kind of yeasts that are like fungi that are affecting our immunity. I like to wait until we've kind of at least given the small intestine a chance to heal itself a little bit first, so that we don't get all their byproducts coming through. Yeah, and if we don't change the environment, this can take forever. So some people are on Candida diets like indefinitely. And to me, that's just an avoidance of the problem rather than a resolution. So we also live with yeasts. Candida and other fungi, they break down our bodies when we die, and they make it more possible for the bacteria to then consume it. I know it's disgusting, but they have a role in nature, and we're not going to be getting rid of them anytime soon. So we need to create an environment where they know their place. Like, it's not your time, buddy. You wait. And that can only be done like properly. It can't be done by just killing them and then they just grow back. And yeah, there are too many risks. There are too many risks. Like, I don't want to risk someone's thyroid flare up by just killing yeast up front. So that's why I like to do it kind of step 3. And you can do fun things. You can make kefir. You can make, I like to make a coconut kefir and then add hibiscus and vanilla, and you can do all these cool things and make like these awesome carbonated drinks. And, maybe you can get them on tap in your kitchen and we can just nerd out. And this is the kind of long-term health plan that's like going to be astronomical for your family and for yourself. But it's a gentle plan. It's not like carpet bombing Candida up front. So that's why we do it after all these other bacteria have been established, because we want it to be safe and fun as possible. Make sense? Sandy's rocking it. Thank you, Sandy. I can hear you in the comments. Perfect. Okay, so then we're talking about building diversity. Okay, so this is my step 4. And this is an ongoing step, right? This is the more diverse our digestive bacteria are, the better we're going to be able to tolerate a wide variety of foods. We're going to be able to start reintroducing things. We're going to have a healthier hormone balance. We're going to have a healthier immune balance, right? We're going to get the right signals going through instead of just a lower amount of bacteria sending a more concentrated amount of enzymes to our immune system telling it to do something. We're going to get a more helicopter view for our immune system, if that makes sense. So yeah, we want to be able to tolerate a wider variety of foods. We want to be able to maintain a healthy environment and prevent dysbiosis from happening, right? Imbalances. We might not be able to prevent ourselves from ever getting sick, but we can prevent like the long-term effects of when something like that does happen. We can discourage other organisms. I'm just trying to move so it doesn't get windy here. We can discourage other organisms by having more diversity. Diversity is only going to help us reduce H. pylori and prevent them from coming back in the future, kind of thing. And also, as we talked about, the lactobacillus are transient. So having as wide of a variety in our diets as we can, the ones we can get in capsules and the ones that we can't, is only going to really help us. Yeah. Okay, and so then the last step would be to do any further testing that's required. We want to assess underlying issues. And so a lot of things really take care of themselves. And I'm a huge fan of saving money on testing and saving stress on testing. So the little niggly things like the food allergens and this kind of thing, a lot of those things can go away on their own. So I don't love to test for them up front unless, I mean, it's person specific. So unless there's something very obvious going on, you know, and if this kind of step-by-step plan hasn't quite tweaked the bacteria, then there's probably somebody in there that needs a little special something. And so then we know better what to test for. We know better what the chances are of having different types of bacteria. So I like to test last. You know, if you go through these steps and you still have digestive symptoms, then you want to get a good gut test. I will say I really like the 401H from BioHealth. It's the one that tests for H. pylori. And I love to test and retest, right? So if you get to the point where you do a test and then you alter your plan, then you want to do a retest so that you know that your plan's working. Because something will work, right? Okay, so we'll talk about specific questions after. So what to do? What if you just went to the store and you just kept taking supplements and probiotics and maybe they weren't quite the right ones, or maybe you were missing something. Maybe there was some piece of the puzzle that hadn't been addressed. I always say it's like the treasure's buried 7 feet deep. What if you just dig 6 feet deep? What if you dig 1,000 holes that are 6 feet deep and you miss the freaking treasure? What if you keep going at this on your own? Or what if your clients keep doing this on their own and they get discouraged? What if they decide that, you know, they've tried everything? These are the people. I've tried everything. I've taken this, I've taken that, I've done kombucha, blah, 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 and I'm still not better. You know, there's something missing. There's something missing. Yeah. So anyway, so this is why I've made my step-by-step. This is why I love to step-by-step things for everybody. Right. And yeah, that's why I created this system. So I'm offering it in a couple different ways. We'll talk about candida and heavy metals after. I'm offering this system in a couple of different ways. I call it the Friendly Flora solution. I love to name my step-by-steps. One of the ways that you can do this is a private retreat, which I'm going to be talking more about toward the end of this month. If you're on my list, like if you receive my stuff, I would like to invite people to come to Pender, and I can just customize because I love customizing, right? So we can eat all probiotic customized food. You can leave with the recipes. We can do a full lab review. We can do a stool test and analyze it. We can analyze your genetics. We can go like hardcore, right? And that's the kind of like 3-day transformation that I'm super excited. The investment for that is $29.97. You can also access this information online in my Friendly Flora online program. Yay! And the investment, well, let's just quickly talk about what's in the program here for a sec. So we got workshops. So we got the 5 workshops that go step by step. And we're slowly working on breaking down so you can go recipe by recipe too, but don't really want you to skip ahead. I really want it to be, I'm super crazy about my steps. So 5 workshops. We've got Q&As. We've got recipe videos, which I'm still working on breaking out for you. Might just end up doing separate. We've got, 4 Q&A sessions. So we're going to meet and we're going to personally answer your questions. And this is when we get to super customize everything, right? So I really, 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 really want you to be able to make something that's like a yogurt that you can eat. So what if you can't have any nuts and seeds? So what if you can't have potatoes? So what if you can't have any legumes? So what if you can't have soy? Like, we can make something for you. I guarantee it. But then this is also when we can share what we've made, because everything that you make is going to help somebody else, right? Because you have your creative mind, which is super different from mine. So I'm going to give you a recipe. I'm going to give you like a base template. It's going to say like X number of this, X number of that. You're going to put it together with things that you can eat, and somebody else is going to get benefit from that. So that's what the Q&A calls are for. To make it easy and fun. We're going to have a kickoff call to get started where I can get to know you, and then I can think a little bit about, how I can help you in future calls. I really like to just know who I'm talking about. We're going to talk a little bit about your history and about what you need. And you can take a look at my kitchen and I can show you what's in there. And how I do things and what I've made lately. I think it is actually very helpful to get personal. We can have a little show and tell. We kind of do this on all our calls anyway. And at the end, we're going to have an investment assessment and investigation call where it's like, we can find out how you are. We can find out what is most likely the next thing to test for. We can always continue to improve. So there's always that, but there's also like, if something's not working for you, what's going to work, or what can we test first to eliminate, the next possible variable. Health, even when you go to the doctor's office, there's a lot of trial and error. I love minimizing trial and error. I love testing, but I love knowing exactly which test to get. So that's why we're doing this call at the end. So go ahead, go to the next one. We've got a Facebook group. It's just, you need to have this in a program. You don't have to be on Facebook, but those of you that are, we can communicate more easily. There's a super active group in there. They are so creative. You should see the parfaits that they've made and just like crazy stuff, with the yam gurt, and other recipes. So, we can build a movement together. I really I'm at the point where I want my work to matter. I want this to matter, not just in that it helps you to feel better, but in that we are changing the way that people feel about their bodies. We are changing the way that we approach healthcare, and we can only do that together. And for you to support others and for them to support you as well. Go ahead. Yeah, so guides and materials. You're going to get, PDFs, recipes. You're going to get information about all the bacteria, all the nerdy stuff that I don't like to talk about in my demo videos. You're going to receive that as a PDF and as a recording. Worksheets. Yeah. Probiotic information. Yeah. Okay, so go ahead. So the investment for Friendly Flora is $97 over 3 months. So 3 times of 97. And you get lifetime access to the program and all the stuff that I continue to add to it. So if I make upgrades to it at another point, then you get it. So as long as I have the website, you're grandfathered in. Yeah. So go ahead. So I also have a program called A Cultured Christmas, which was so fun for me to make because I love like celebrations. I love holidays. So we made like sugar plum fairy cheesecake, and we made all these things, these non-dairy. We had like this crazy cultured meal. We had a cheese platter. We had dips and dressings and a cucumber salad with a probiotic dressing and the whole thing. So A Cultured Christmas. I usually just do at Christmas, but I thought we could do like un-Christmas and that I would give it to you when you register for Friendly Flora. Yeah. So you can go to, stephjackson.com/Flora to register. There's also a VIP version. So if you need more help, or if you just like more help, or if you just want to nerd out with me and just make it more personal, I'll design some recipes for you and with you, right? We can talk about what it is that you can or can't or want to or don't want to eat. So go ahead, Rooker. So we can, design everything together. We'll meet. We have a whole VIP day. We can make your recipes together. You'll get your own videos. We'll do a functional lab analysis. So a nutritional analysis of your blood test, right? And a stool test as well. And a nutrient test if desired. I highly recommend. So I love doing this because, again, I love customizing things for people. So if you want to find out about that, you can write a message to careandsupport@stephjackson.com, or you can also check out the information page at stephjackson.com/Flora. There's a little bit of info about it at the bottom. You can just, sign up for a talk. We'll just talk about it. Okay. So that's it. Oh, no, it's not. Okay. So when you register today, bonuses. When you register today, when you register today, we'll go back to today. When you register today, I will give you a skin microbiome presentation. So super cool. We talk about the skin. We talk about different bacteria and parasites that affect the health of the skin and how they can cause or contribute to different skin conditions. We're going to talk about those probiotic skin products and whether or not they're actually probiotic. Spoiler alert. But yeah, super, super cool. So I'll give you that. And so that's also 97. And so now we can go back to the kickoff call is this Thursday also. So I'm sort of reopening this program for everybody because we did close registration last week. But I felt like we should do this. Yeah, so go ahead. Just have like a cute last thank you slide. Cool. Okay. So let's answer some questions. So please go to stephjackson.com /Flora. So you can register for the program. And we have all those bonuses. That skin microbiome thing is only for today, if you register today, or if you register on the day when you watch this replay, because we have the technology now to know that. Okay. So let's talk some questions. Yeah, I want to talk about the heavy metals and candida. So the thing about candida is not so much that it likes heavy metals, it's more that it doesn't care. Whereas the rest of our body can be either reactive to or affected by something like lead, mercury, cadmium. Candida doesn't really care. They don't care. So they're just there. It doesn't affect them. Who cares? So there's this affinity there where they can both exist in an imperfect environment. And so we say that Candida like latches on to the metals, and they do that just as much as they latch on to everything else. It's just those metals happen to be there and they don't care. Does that make sense? So I really want you to think of this in context, because it's impossible to think holistically when we're thinking mercury causes Candida overgrowth. Because that's a mistake. There is a condition in the body that is allowing, or either we're like eating a lot of mercury, so stop doing that, or we're playing with it, please stop doing that. Either there's an exposure, right? Or there's a condition in the body that's allowing this to not be detoxified, right? If our bodies can, they will detoxify these things. They won't store them in our bones. But if we're storing things, then the Candida don't care and they're comfortable there. Same conditions in the body creating both of these problems. They're just kind of happy friends by coincidence. That making sense? Okay, I know there's like a 30-second delay, so I'm going to head forward. Yeah, okay, so, glycerin. So biocidin, get the one without the glycerin. The capsules should not have glycerin in them. Even the capsules, lame. Okay, yes, there are a couple other products. I just prefer biocidin. But what I would do actually is get a berberine, because it can help to lower blood sugar, and it's kind of a broad spectrum herbal antibiotic as well. So get berberine capsules. I believe Rita Marie does like 500 milligrams like with each meal kind of thing for blood sugar issues. And bonus, it helps to reduce certain invasive digestive bacteria. But here's the thing. So they can become resistant to stuff. So if you do the berberine like that, I would also rotate some other herbs. I'm going to give you an example. Like a tincture of yarrow, a tincture of usnea lichen, and then a third tincture, even tincture of basil or rosemary, something like that. So then just take each one for 4 days and do a rotation, but take the berberine the whole time. That is kind of like just a base. I don't know anything about you, but this is kind of what we might try thing. I like to personalize this further, right? Because it starts to get more complicated. Really, what you can do is take a bacteria test, and you can figure out from that exactly, which herbs are going to be the most effective. And that's what I prefer when you're starting to get into this kind of level of tinkering. It's unfortunate about the glycerin, especially because it's better on an empty stomach to take these kind of antibiotic herbs. I hate saying that. But on an empty stomach, you're going to get that coating that we were talking about, right? You're going to get more surface area coverage. If you take it with food, it's not going to be quite the same thing. So yeah, I would look for another product. I hope that helps you a little bit. Yeah, I think we have a recording of the previous webinar. I can't say for sure, but I believe we have both. So maybe we can send you out recordings of both. The other one, we had a fun food demo. It was just really fun. So it would be good to check that out. Yeah. Yeah, so Sandy answered Ling's question, and I think that's fantastic. Why tincture? Because you can put it in water and you can drink it. So like we were talking about the small intestine with all those microvilli, right? And all the surface area. And if we can get like 16 ounces of water and put a good squirt of tincture, you got to work up to that, make sure that it's safe for you, put a good squirt of tincture in there and just drink it down. You're getting, those active constituents from the plant, which have been extracted by the alcohol. So it's very concentrated. And yet you're getting all this surface area coverage. That's what I'm talking about. Cool. Cool. Yeah. I do actually have some other blends that I recommend. I don't love blends. I really prefer the rotation, but what I want you to do is send an email to careandsupport@stephjackson.com, and then I can send you some links to some other blends. I need to look at them again and make sure they don't have glycerin, so I'm not wasting your time. Okay, so yes, to sign up to the program to make like lots of probiotic food in your own kitchen with me and step by step rebuild this, go to stephjackson.com/Flora. Yeah, and I'll see you in the program. Yeah, the kickoff is Thursday. I would love to see you there. I do small kickoff calls so that we can actually have a talk. It's my favorite way to welcome you to the program. I want to know who you are. Yeah. So any other questions? I'll take anything else you got right now. Hi, Eugenia. Well, we can customize it for you. That's for sure. Because I'm thinking for like a family member that might not have access to products like this, having somebody to help her to make them at home, that could be pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk to Bob. Okay. Yeah. Bob will sort you out. Okay. So anything else? Yeah. Oh, thanks, Sandy. Yeah. Thanks, Eugenia. Yeah. Any other closing thoughts or questions? I'll try and take this off. This is like super sunny. Yeah. Thanks for being here. Again, you could be doing tons of stuff right now. This is just really great. It really makes me happy to see you here. Yes. Okay. So what else? I'll give you some examples. I've made like straight spinach. I've made spinach with other oils like coconut oil. I have made yams on their own. I've made potatoes on their own. The thing with these foods is when you ferment them, their glycemic index goes way down, right? Because the bacteria are eating all the sugar. So we can ferment other tubers and root vegetables like Jerusalem artichoke. I've done that. Carrots, beets, those kind of things, depending on which nutrients you want to get more of. And then you don't have to add any fats. So you can also do it like kind of fat-free and also dairy-free. So it's not just like you need to just use a bunch of sunflower seeds and almonds or whatever, right? Yeah. So those are some examples. Yeah. I did try straight broccoli. It wasn't my favorite, but straight spinach was actually not that bad, especially because I use my yogurts as dips a lot of the time. So straight spinach fermented like a yogurt, or if you're able to tolerate with a little tiny bit of coconut oil or coconut butter. And then you can take this fermented spinach and then add like garlic and ginger or whatever you're able to tolerate and create yourself a cool dip. Because then it's a great excuse to eat more vegetables and dip them into your dip. And it's also like yogurt doesn't have to be in a bowl with fruit. Yeah. Cool. I hope that is helpful. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like this super fatty, heavy thing too, right? Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay. I'm going to go, but you're going to go to stephjackson.com/Flora, and I will see you in the program. Okay. Bye, guys.